Padraic is a wonderful storyteller with a wicked sense of humor. Please help me welcome to the stage the marvelous, the magnificent Padraic Keohane.
Thank you very much. My story comes from France. Once upon a time, there was a baron who ran out of money. So he decided to marry off his daughter to the richest man in the area. Now, unfortunately for her, the richest man was also the meanest man in the area. You see, this man had been born with a hunched back, and he felt that since life had been cruel to him, he should be cruel to everybody else. She was not too happy with this union, but it was to help her father, so she agreed. And so they were married. Now, to be fair, her husband was good to her in his own way. He would buy her things, jewelry, dresses. They lived in a really big house far away from everybody in the woods. She had a lovely garden outside. But he was a very jealous man because he assumed that first chance she got, she would run off. So she was never allowed to leave the house, and she was never allowed to have anyone in. So it's a very, very lonely life for her. Months went by. It was actually Christmas morning, and they were sitting down to breakfast when they heard some music. And they looked out the window, and they saw 3 men coming up the road towards their house. And the interesting thing was these men were all hunchbacked too. Now they came to the door, they knocked, and the husband opened it. And when the 3 minstrels saw that he was like them, they said, "Brother, let us come in, let us entertain you." And the husband did something he had never done before. He invited somebody in. So they came in, they played music, they sang, they told jokes. And then the husband gave each one of them a gold piece and said, "Here, leave now, and if I ever see you again, I will beat you all within an inch of your lives." Well, they laughed at the joke until they saw that he wasn't joking. And so they bid adieu, and they left. After the minstrels had left, the husband put on his coat, said he was going out for his morning constitutional, and he told his wife, "Do not leave the house, do not have anyone here." And then he left. She went up to her room, contemplating spending Christmas alone, no friends, no family. And she looked out her window, and what should she see but the 3 minstrels off in the distance. So she called to them, asking them to come back. And they did. She said, "Can you come inside and talk to me for a while?" And they said, "Well, we'd like to, but we're afraid your husband will carry out his threat." She said, "Well, don't worry. He'll be gone for at least an hour." So they agreed, and they came in. They sang some more. They told her more jokes. They filled her in on all the gossip in the area. And she was overjoyed until she looked out the window and saw her husband coming back much too early. She said, "Oh, dear, here he comes." And they're like, "We don't want to get beat." So she said, come on, upstairs." She brought them upstairs to her room, where she had 3 large chests, each one just big enough to fit one of the minstrels. So she took everything out of the chest, squeezed each minstrel into a chest, put the lids on tight. She heard her husband downstairs calling for her, so she ran down. She said, "Well, what's going on? Why are you back so early? Is something wrong?" He said, No, I just forgot my gloves." "But what's going on here? I heard voices upstairs, and it took you so long. Do you have someone upstairs?" She goes, No, not at all." But he didn't trust her. So he went upstairs, he looked in her room, he looked around, he went into the garden, he checked all around. Then he went back to the kitchen, being satisfied nobody else was there. He had some more toast, had some coffee. Finally, he put on his gloves and he left. Soon as he left, she ran upstairs, took the tops off the chest, and found out the 3 minstrels had died of suffocation. It was very sad. And she was heartbroken, I'm sure, but she couldn't focus on that because now she had to think of how to get rid of 3 dead bodies on Christmas. Any other day of the year, you got a chance, but this is Christmas Day. So what's she going to do? She could put him in the garden, but her husband might notice the new plots. So as she's looking out the window, she sees a man walking through the forest. And she calls out to him, saying, "Hey, I'll pay you a gold piece if you do some work for me." So he agreed. He came over, and she brought him upstairs. And she showed him the first chest with the first minstrel. And she said, "I need you to get rid of his body, and don't ask questions, please." Well, the man looked at the minstrel. He looked at the lady, and he said, "Do you have a sack?" She said, "Oh, yeah, yes. And so she got a very large sack and gave it to him. And he took the minstrel out of the chest. He put him in the sack, tied it up, threw him over his shoulder, carried him down the stairs, out into the woods, all the way down until he came to the river, and he threw the minstrel in. Then he went back, and he said, "Okay, it's done. Please pay me my gold piece." And she said, "Well, I would pay you if it was done." He goes, well, what do you mean? I just threw him in the river. No, he's back upstairs in the chest. For you see, while he was gone, she had switched the chests around. So now it was the second minstrel. So he ran upstairs saying, well, what's going on? And he saw the second minstrel in the chest. Says, I don't believe it. Is this a wizard or a sorcerer or something? She said, oh, I don't know. Do you have another sack? Oh, sure. So she got another bag, gave it to him. He took the second minstrel out, put him in the bag, took it down the stairs, took it through the forest, went to the river, found a few rocks, threw that in, tied it up tightly, threw the bag in the river, and watched it sink. Then he went back to the house. Once he got there, the woman said, I think you're right. He must be a wizard because he's back upstairs again. Because once again, she had switched the boxes. He ran upstairs and he saw the third minstrel in the chest and he goes, I don't believe this. Do you have another sack? And she said, oh yeah, right here in my hand by some chance there. So he took the other sack, took the other minstrel out, put him in, dragged him down the stairs, dragged him through the forest, threw every rock he could as hard as he could into the bag, tied it up tight, and then said, listen you, if I see you one more time, I'm going to make sure that you are good and dead and can never bother anyone again. And then he threw the body in the river. And he stood there 10, 15, 20 minutes until he was satisfied after it sank. And so then he went back to the house. But who should he see walking back to the house but the husband, returning home? And he said, I don't believe it. How did you get out again? And he looked around. He found the biggest log he could. He ran up to the husband and said, I warned you, and you didn't listen. And then he took the log and he beat the husband to death. Then he dragged the husband's body to the river, threw some stones in his pockets, kicked him into the water, stood there about 45 minutes, maybe an hour, making sure he didn't come up again. Then he went back to the house, looking left and right all the way just to be on the safe side. When he got there, he said, is he gone? She goes, yes, he's gone. You did it this time. He said, good, because I met him on the road and I made sure he will never bother you or anyone else again. And she said, oh, why, thank you. Thank you so much. I promised you 1 gold piece, but you did such a good job. I'm going to give you 3 gold pieces and Merry Christmas. And at least she lived happily ever after. And that is the story of the men who wouldn't stay dead from France.
Thank you, Padraic. Yes, I think you lived up to your wicked sense of humor fame.